Lead the way, Kong said in a carefree manner. The maid in green hurriedly agreed and led the way ahead. Before long, she brought the two of them to a private elegant room, then served all kinds of rare fruits and fragrant tea for them to enjoy. This is black fruit and mist spring tea, specialties of the 10 Hazards Mountains. They taste quite good. Fellow Taoistly, you can try them, Kong introduced. Hanli picked up a cup of fragrant tea that was drifting with white mist, took a small sip and nodded. Just then the door of the private room moved slightly. A young married woman in a pink dress walked in. She had also fully transformed into human form. Her face was like peach blossoms, her figure was slender, and there was not the slightest trace of anything non-human about her. I have kept our two honored guests waiting. I am Mylan, the person in charge of Floating Gold Pavilion, the woman in pink said with a bright smile as she slowly walked in. As she moved, pieces of pink petals appeared in the surrounding void from time to time, releasing a fragrance like orchids and musk. Hanli raised his brows slightly. This woman in pink had quite a high cultivation level. She had already reached the peak of the Golden Immortal stage, and was only one step away from the Tai realm. Her true body was probably a tree demon, and the cultivation method she practiced also seemed rather extraordinary. However, someone with such a high cultivation level was only serving as a minor person in charge at Floating Gold Pavilion. That made things seem a little strange. In the next moment he understood. This was most likely one of Floating Gold Pavilion's business tactics. They sent out someone whose cultivation was far higher than the customers to receive them, gaining the upper hand in presence without saying a word. Then, by guiding the situation to their advantage, they could easily seize the initiative. However, such petty tricks naturally had no effect on Hanli and Kong. The two sat there steadily drinking their tea, their expressions not changing in the slightest. I wonder what our two honored guests have come to our pavilion to purchase? Mylan was secretly startled when she saw their calm expressions, but not the slightest sign of it showed on her face. She sat down across from them and asked, I heard that Floating Gold Pavilion is one of the largest shops in Black Weasel City, so I came here because of its reputation. I have a large business deal to discuss with your pavilion. This is the deposit. Manager Mylan, please accept it first, Kong said leisurely as he set down his teacup. He flipped his hand, took out a storage bracelet, and tossed it over. Mylan was slightly stunned when she heard this. Surprise flashed in her eyes, but she still caught the bracelet. Her spiritual sense swept inside, and shock immediately appeared on her face. Inside the storage bracelet were 500,000 demonic origin stones, stacked neatly together. The sight carried a powerful impact. It is Floating Gold Pavilion's honor to receive the favor of two honored guests. May I ask what kind of large business deal you are referring to? Mylan quickly realized she had lost composure and hurriedly restrained her expression, though she still reluctantly put down the storage bracelet. Hanli watched this from the side, and a faint smile flashed in his eyes. Mylan had wanted to use her powerful cultivation to pressure the two of them, so Kong had answered her in the same way. He threw out a huge sum of wealth first and took the initiative. In this silent exchange, the two sides had already clashed once, and Kong had faintly gained the upper hand. As expected of someone from Broad Origin House, he truly understood the way of business. We came here this time because we want to buy a batch of high-grade purple sun-warm jade, Kong said, no longer going in circles. Purple sun-warm jade? Mylan's expression changed slightly when she heard this, and she fell silent. What? Is your pavilion not interested in this business? Kong asked, his gaze darkening slightly. Please do not misunderstand, honored guests. Naturally, we want to do this business. It is just that purple sun-warm jade is extremely scarce. Let alone high-grade purple sun-warm jade, we do not even have mid-grade pieces, Mylan said with a troubled expression. I know this treasure is rare. How about this? No matter what the market price of purple sun-warm jade is, we are willing to add another 30%, but the quality must be good, Kong said after a brief pause, tapping his fingers on the table. You exaggerate, honored guest. I am not taking this chance to raise the price. What I said just now is the truth. The two of you should not be locals of Black Weasel City, correct? Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but the two of you do not understand the situation surrounding purple sun-warm jade. It is true that this city produces purple sunworm jade, but its yield is already extremely small. Most of it is controlled by Lord Black Weasel, and only a small portion flows outside. Although our pavilion is one of the largest shops in Black Weasel City, we only have a very small amount of purple sunworm jade in stock, and all of it is low grade, Mylan said with a bitter smile. Han Li and Shi Chuankong's faces both darkened when they heard this. In that case, your pavilion has no way at all? Shi Chuankong was silent for a moment before speaking slowly. I am truly sorry. If it were any other goods it would be easier to discuss, but when it comes to purple sunworm jade, our pavilion truly has no ability to help. I ask the two honored guests to forgive us, Mylan said with a sigh. If that is the case we will not force the matter, Shi Chuankong said, then retrieved the storage bracelet. Mylan watched helplessly as the storage bracelet was taken back, and she sighed inwardly. Manager Mylan, you said just now that your pavilion has some low-grade purple sunworm jade. Why not bring it out and let us have a look? Han Li, who had remained silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Very well. Please wait a moment, honored guests. I will go and bring it over at once. Mylan's eyes brightened when she heard this. She immediately stood up and quickly walked out. After Mylan left, Han Li waved his hand and set up a soundproof barrier around the two of them. Fellow Taoist Shi, do you think what Mylan said was true? Han Li asked. When I was speaking to that woman just now, I secretly used a mind-reading secret technique. This technique can detect whether a person's words are true or false to a certain degree. Judging from the reaction of the technique, she should not have been lying, Shi Chuankong said. In that case, it may truly be difficult for us to buy high-grade purple sunworm jade, Han Li said with a frown. We can only do our best and leave the rest to fate. If we truly cannot buy it, there is nothing we can do. Purple sunworm jade is divided into low-grade, mid-grade and high-grade, and the difference between each grade is extremely large. Low-grade purple sunworm jade has only ordinary effects in benefiting the soul. Even if we buy it, it will not be of much use, Shi Chuankong said lightly, seemingly not too concerned. Whether it is high-grade or low-grade, since this item may be useful to Taihun, I cannot miss it, Han Li said calmly. Purple sunworm jade was related to Taihun's recovery. No matter what, he had to buy it. Shi Chuankong smiled but did not say anything. After that, the two did not speak again. Both seemed to be thinking about something. A moment later, footsteps came from outside. Han Li raised one hand and withdrew the surrounding restriction. The door of the private room was pushed open, and Mylan walked in, holding a square purple jade box in her hands. I have kept the two honored guests waiting. These are all the purple sunworm jades in our pavilion. Please inspect them. Mylan placed the jade box in front of Han Li. Han Li opened the jade box. Inside were 20 to 30 purple crystals the size of fists, releasing faint, hazy purple light. They looked extremely beautiful. However, some flaws could occasionally be seen on the crystals, damaging their overall appearance and making the purple light they emitted impure. He picked up one purple crystal and felt that it was warm to the touch. A wave of heat passed through his body and reached his mind, wrapping around his soul. His soul immediately felt as though it were bathing in a warm spring breeze, feeling extremely comfortable. A trace of joy rose in his heart. This purple sunworm jade truly had a nourishing effect on the soul. It should be effective for Taihun. Although these purple sunworm jades are low-grade, they are still quite good. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Mylan saw Han Li holding a piece of purple sunworm jade for a long while without speaking, as if his mind had wandered away, and could not help asking, how are these purple sunworm jades priced? Han Li placed the purple sunworm jade back into the jade box and asked non-committally. Mylan glanced at Han Li and secretly considered for a moment before quoting a price 10% higher than the market price. Deal, Han Li said. The price was still within his expectations, and he was too lazy to bargain, so he nodded and agreed. Han Li had killed Tai Yu and the others and taken their storage treasures. He now had a considerable number of demonic origin stones on him, so this amount meant little to him. He flipped his hand, put away the purple jade box, then took out a storage ring and handed it to Mylan. Thank you for your patronage. Mylan swept her spiritual sense inside the storage ring, and a smile flashed in her eyes. After the transaction was completed, Han Li and Shi Chuankong did not stay long. They soon took their leave. Mylan personally escorted the two of them out of floating gold pavilion's gate, showing them full courtesy before returning inside. "Senior, did everything go smoothly?" Lucia had been waiting by the roadside. When he saw the two come out, he immediately went forward to greet them. "There are some things you should not ask. Do not speak too much. Just focus on leading the way. Take us to the next shop," Kong said coldly after glancing at him. "Yes." Lucia shivered and hurriedly agreed. He no longer dared to ask anything and drove the beast carriage forward, soon stopping in front of a tall tower-like shop. Hanli and Kong got off the beast carriage and walked straight into the tower shop. Less than half an hour later they came out again. "To the next one," Hanli calmly instructed. In this way, before nightfall, the two of them visited 6 or 7 large shops in succession and swept up all the purple sun-warm jade they had in stock. After night fell, in a room at an inn within the city, Hanli formed hand seals with both hands and waved. Formation flags flew out from his sleeve and landed in different parts of the room, opening several layers of restrictive light screens that enveloped the entire room. After finishing all of this, his expression relaxed. Silver light flashed in his hand, and a silver light door appeared. Hanli stepped into it and entered the flower branch space. Inside the pavilion within the flower branch space, Taihun was lying on a bed, still unconscious. At this moment, her face was snow-white, and her cheeks seemed faintly translucent. From time to time, streams of black qi drifted out from her body and scattered into the air. Hanli's expression changed slightly when he saw Taihun like this. Her condition was much worse than when he had come to check on her a few days ago, and the speed at which the vital energy in her body was dispersing had increased considerably. He immediately took a deep breath, and his expression quickly returned to calm. He waved at a nearby table. A flash of green light passed by, and 5 or 6 jade boxes of different sizes appeared out of thin air on the table. They were filled with purple sun-warm jade, totaling more than 200 pieces after a careful count. All of these purple sun-warm jades were low-grade, without a single mid-grade piece among them. Although he had not been able to buy mid-grade purple sun-warm jade, such a large quantity of low-grade pieces should still be able to produce some effect. However, buying purple sun-warm jade in such a sweeping manner had probably already drawn the attention of some well-informed people in Black Weasel City. Fortunately, trade in Black Weasel City was flourishing, and there were many merchants from other places coming and going. There were also many merchants like them, so the two of them were not especially noticeable. Still, he and Kong had already discussed it. They would only stay here one more day to purchase purple sun-warm jade. No matter the result, they would immediately leave this place afterward to avoid unnecessary trouble. As he thought this, Hanli flipped his hand, and 3 pieces of purple sun-warm jade appeared in his palm. Following the method he had previously obtained from Kong, he carefully placed them on Taihun's forehead, chest, and lower abdomen, then sent a spell seal into each of them. The hazy purple light on the surface of the 3 purple crystals immediately brightened, but then quickly returned to normal. Seeing this, Hanli frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, he sat down cross-legged in place, his gaze fixed on Taihun without moving. Time slowly passed. After half a quarter of an hour, neither the 3 pieces of purple sun-warm jade nor Taihun showed even the slightest change. Hanli's expression sank. He had personally tried these purple sun-warm jades earlier. Although they were low-grade, they truly had a significant benefit for the soul. Even if they could not completely cure Taihun, they should have had some effect. However, he had already expected this possibility. He immediately stood up and began arranging something on the floor of the pavilion. More than an hour later, a hexagonal formation about 10 feet wide appeared on the pavilion floor. At the center was a circular empty space, and there were 16 grooves distributed throughout the formation. Hanli looked around and confirmed that there were no mistakes. Only then did he wave his hand and release a surge of green light, lifting Taihun's body and gently placing her at the center of the formation. After that, he took out 16 pieces of purple sun-warm jade, and inserted them one by one into the grooves within the formation. Then he waved his hand and sent a spell seal into the formation. A humming sound rang out. The hexagonal formation immediately began to operate. The 16 pieces of purple sun-warm jade released brilliant purple light, and streams of purple radiance surged out from them, then gathered along the formation patterns onto Taihun's body. A layer of purple light immediately appeared over Taihun, wrapping around her body. Once covered by the purple light, Taihun's aura stabilized. The speed at which her vital energy was dispersing greatly decreased, but it did not completely stop. Hanli frowned when he saw this. The energy contained within purple sun-warm jade was extremely special in nature, and activating it was not easy. This formation looked simple, but it was actually extremely profound. Based on a formation that had the effect of gathering the soul, Hanli had used all his understanding of formations and restrictions to modify it with great effort. It was enough to raise the effectiveness of the low-grade purple sun-warm jade within it to roughly the level of mid-grade pieces. Yet now it still was not enough. In other words, if he wanted to further increase the formation's effect on Taihun, he would have to replace all the low-grade purple sun-warm jade in it with mid-grade pieces. But at present, he did not have even a single piece of mid-grade purple sun-warm jade, let alone 16 pieces. Han Li's brows knitted tightly, and he soon let out a long sigh. It seemed that, for now, he could only place his hopes on the method Shi Chuankong had mentioned. Once they returned to Night Sun City, they would find that so-called Grand Priest. Fortunately, the speed at which Taihun's vital energy was dispersing had already been greatly reduced. It should be enough to support her until they reached Night Sun City. However, he only had a little more than 200 low-grade purple sun-warm jades in his possession. He did not know how long they could sustain the operation of the formation, so he still needed to purchase as many more as possible. Taihun, don't worry. No matter how difficult it is, I will wake you. Hanli looked at Taihun and murmured. After saying this, he soon left the flower branch space and returned to the inn room. The night passed without incident. Early the next morning, Hanli and Shi Chuankong settled the room fee and walked toward the inn entrance. Fellow Taoist Shi, since we have decided to stay here for only one more day, time is limited. It would be better for us to split up. What do you think? Hanli said. That is fine. This way we can search more shops. However, we must remain cautious and stay in contact at all times, Shi Chuankong said after a moment of surprise. Of course. But fellow Taoist Shi, you may not need low-grade purple sun-warm jade, but this item is very useful to me. If you see any on your side, please buy all of it for me. I will pay you back afterward, Hanli said. No problem. As for the cost, there is no need. Back in the prison of Azura City, if fellow Taoist Taihun had not saved me, I would probably have died there. Consider these purple sun-warm jades a gift from me to fellow Taoist Taihun. A small repayment for saving my life, Shi Chuankong promised. Thank you, Hanli said, and did not insist. As the two spoke, they walked out of the inn. Lu Xie had already been waiting at the entrance. When he saw the two come out, he immediately came forward with a smile all over his face. Fellow Taoist Li, you take Lu Xie's beast carriage. I will rent another one, Shi Chuankong said, then turned and walked into the distance, stopping another beast carriage by the roadside. What is Senior Shi doing? Lu Xie asked in confusion when he saw this. He has other matters to handle. Do not bother about him. Today we will continue visiting other shops, Hanli said with a wave of his hand. Yes. Lu Xie tactfully asked no more and drove Hanli toward the trading district. In the blink of an eye, another half-day passed. Under Lu Xie's guidance, Hanli visited another 5 or 6 shops. However, the harvest was far worse than the day before. Up to now, he had only bought fewer than 100 pieces of low-grade purple sun-warm jade. He walked out of a shop with his brows tightly furrowed. He waved for Lu Xie, who was standing outside, and was about to head to the next shop. Senior Li, not long after you entered this shop just now, someone stopped me and asked me to give this item to you. Lu Xie walked over, holding a black voice transmission talisman in his hand. His face was uneasy. Hanli raised his brows and took the voice transmission talisman. His spiritual sense entered it, and his pupils immediately shrank. Where is that person? He immediately asked, looking around. People were coming and going nearby, and there was nothing unusual. That person, after giving the voice transmission talisman to me, he immediately left. Before leaving, he said that if Senior Li wanted to find him, He would be waiting for you at the Plum Grove tea house up ahead, Lucia said. Seeing Han Li's reaction, he became even more nervous, and his words came out in broken fragments. It is fine. You do not need to be nervous. Take me to the Plum Grove tea house, Han Li instructed, his gaze flickering. Lucia agreed and drove Han Li forward. Han Li sat in the beast carriage, looking at the voice transmission talisman in his hand with a thoughtful expression. There was only one sentence in the talisman. I have news about purple sun-warm jade. After a long while, firmness flashed in his eyes. He flipped his hand and put away the voice transmission talisman. Then he took out a purple jade plate, formed a hand seal to activate it, and spoke a few low words into it before putting it away again. The beast carriage sped forward and soon arrived in front of a quiet tea house. Wait outside, Han Li said, then walked into the tea house. There were not many customers inside. At the moment, only 4 or 5 people were sitting sparsely around. A tea house attendant came forward to welcome him, but Han Li ignored him and swept his gaze over the few tea drinkers. At that moment, a square-faced young man in black sitting near the edge stood up and nodded to Han Li. Fellow Taoist, thank you for coming. However, this is not a place to talk. Let us go to the second floor and discuss in detail. A clear voice sounded in Han Li's ears. Then the black-clothed young man turned and walked upstairs. Han Li narrowed his eyes. After a brief pause, he followed. One after the other, the two entered a private room and sat down. Was this voice transmission talisman left by you? Han Li took out the black voice transmission talisman and asked with a flash in his eyes. That is correct. I am Black Wolf. Since this matter is no small thing, I use this method to invite you here. Please forgive me. The black-clothed young man nodded and admitted. At the same time he waved his sleeve. Several streaks of black light flew out from his hand. They were several small black flags. After spinning in place, they formed a black light screen that covered the entire private room. Han Li's eyes flashed slightly. He immediately judged Black Wolf's cultivation realm. He was a true immortal cultivator. Moreover, this person was not from the fierce beast race. Like Shi Chuankong, he was from the demon race. Han Li was not surprised by this. Over the past 2 days, he had walked through many parts of the city and had already seen quite a few demon race members, even some ordinary mortal demon citizens. Their clothing varied greatly, and they seemed to come from different mortal kingdoms. According to Shi Chuankong, the various fierce beast races within the 10 Hazards Mountains and the demon race outside were enemies. But Black Weasel City was an exception. People of different races could live peacefully together here. Because of this, the entire Black Weasel City was mixed with people of all races, like a large chaotic stew, making it somewhat strange and improper. There was no need to ask how such a situation had come to be. Most likely, it had been single-handedly promoted by the unconventional Lord Black Weasel. That is not a problem. Do you truly have news about Purple Sun-Warm Jade? Han Li cast aside the stray thoughts in his mind, looked directly at Black Wolf, and asked straightforwardly. Naturally. Otherwise, I would not have invited you here, Black Wolf said with a smile. How much Purple Sun-Warm Jade do you have? If it is only a small amount, I will not have much interest. Han Li felt a hint of joy in his heart, but his face remained completely calm. Do not worry, fellow Taoist. The Purple Sun-Warm Jade I have here will absolutely satisfy you in both quantity and quality. This is the list. You can look at it first. If you are satisfied, we can discuss the specific details afterward. Black Wolf chuckled and took out a jade slip, then handed it over. Han Li looked deeply at Black Wolf, took the jade slip, and sent his spiritual sense into it. His expression immediately changed slightly, and deep surprise appeared in his eyes. The amount of purple sun-warm jade listed in the jade slip was indeed not small. There were more than 500 low-grade pieces, nearly 40 or 50 mid-grade pieces, and even 2 pieces of high-grade purple sun-warm jade. As far as I know, purple sun-warm jade is extremely rare. Even the best shops in the city can only buy some low-grade pieces. Can you truly produce this much purple sun-warm jade? Han Li was silent for a moment, then spoke with a sharp gleam in his eyes. I am not someone with nothing better to do. Since I have said this, it is naturally not false. You may rest assured, fellow Taoist, Black Wolf said with a faint smile, clapping his hands confidently. In that case, good. How do you intend to sell these purple sun-warm jades? Han Li's expression relaxed slightly, and he nodded. Black Wolf showed a hesitant look. After thinking for a moment, he quoted a price. Han Li's gaze shifted slightly. This price was not expensive. In fact, it was even a little cheaper than the market price he knew. It seemed there must be some hidden circumstances behind this. For example, the origin of this batch of purple sun-warm jade might not be clean, making it difficult to sell, which was why the price was so low. However, Han Li naturally did not care much about that. If this deal could be completed and he obtained the purple sun-warm jade, he would immediately leave Black Weasel City. He was not afraid of any trouble. No problem. I want all of the goods. Did you bring the purple sun-warm jade with you? If so, we can begin the transaction now, Han Li said after thinking it over. No rush. Before making this deal, there are still some things I need to explain, Black Wolf said, waving his hand. Please speak. Han Li thought to himself that this was just as expected, but his expression did not change. To be honest, fellow Taoist, there is no problem with the quantity or quality you require. It is just, Black Wolf said, then showed a slightly hesitant expression. Just what? Han Li asked. It is just that this batch of purple sun-warm jade is currently in another person's hands, and he still does not, Black Wolf said hesitantly, appearing as though he was struggling to speak. So you are using someone else's belongings to discuss a transaction with me? And that person does not even know about this yet? Whether he is willing to trade is still uncertain. Han Li's face darkened, and he spoke with displeasure. Of course not. Those things originally also included my share. Black Wolf seemed to have been touched at a sensitive point by these words. A flash of anger suddenly appeared in his eyes, and his fist struck the table hard. With a clatter, the teacups on the table toppled over, spilling tea everywhere. My apologies. I lost my composure. Black Wolf soon noticed his own behavior and forced down the anger in his eyes. There is more to your words. You may as well speak frankly, Han Li said, his heart stirring at the sight. I naturally have a way to make that person agree to complete this transaction with you at this price, but I need your cooperation. If you agree, we can continue talking. If you feel it is inappropriate, then we will stop here, Black Wolf said, trying to keep his tone calm. Such a profitable transaction naturally interests me greatly. But you just mentioned cooperation. How do you want me to cooperate? Fellow Taoist Black Wolf, surely you do not think that a few unclear words are enough to make someone willingly take a risk? Han Li asked with a frown. You exaggerate, fellow Taoist. It would not count as taking a risk. It is only a matter of using some negotiation methods to force that person to agree to the transaction. At that time, you only need to act according to my signal. I can guarantee that there will be no danger at all during the process, Black Wolf immediately said. Even so, I cannot simply believe your one-sided words. I can cooperate with you, but I also have one condition, Han Li said thoughtfully. Please speak, fellow Taoist, Black Wolf said with a start, then nodded. Fellow Taoist Black Wolf must already know that I am not alone. I have another companion. The two of us have always acted together. If you want me to cooperate with you, then he must come along as well, Han Li said with a smile, changing the direction of the conversation. If that is the condition, then there is no problem at all. As long as he is someone you trust, the more helpers you bring, the better. Black Wolf hesitated briefly, then nodded in agreement. A trace of surprise flashed in Han Li's eyes when he heard this, but he quickly recovered. As long as he and Shi Chuankong acted together, even if danger arose later, as long as no great Luo cultivator appeared, he was confident they could retreat safely. For the sake of purple sun-warm jade, taking some risks was still worth it. In that case, let us go now, Black Wolf said, standing up impatiently. Han Li also did not want to waste time. He immediately stood, and the two soon left the tea house. Outside the tea house, a tall figure was standing there. It was Shi Chuankong. What is going on? Why did you send such an urgent message asking me to come? Shi Chuankong glanced at Black Wolf behind Han Li and asked with a frown. Han Li moved his lips slightly and used voice transmission to roughly explain the transaction with Black Wolf. This transaction sounds quite good. This must be fellow Taoist Black Wolf. Please lead the way. Sichuan Kong said to Black Wolf at once, joy flashing in his eyes. Very well. Please follow me. Black Wolf nodded to Sichuan Kong. Without calling for a beast carriage, he quickly walked into the distance. Sichuan Kong immediately followed close behind, his gaze sweeping around as if worried that Black Wolf might play some trick. Han Li was about to follow as well when he remembered something. He waved at Lucia nearby. You have worked hard these past 2 days, taking us around everywhere. This is your payment. Han Li took out 7 or 8 top-grade demonic stones and handed them to Lucia. Thank you for your generous reward, senior. Lucia was overjoyed when he saw so many top-grade demonic stones and thanked him repeatedly. Han Li waved his hand and quickly caught up with Sichuan Kong and Black Wolf. The three turned through streets and alleys, crossing several roads in succession before soon arriving in front of a somewhat run-down shop. The shop was in a remote location, but its scale was not small. On the signboard at the entrance were the words Sky Vault Shop, written in large golden characters, giving it a rather imposing air. At this moment, business inside the shop seemed cold and quiet. There was not a single customer. Only a thin man who looked to be in his 40s sat behind the counter, lowering his head as he looked at something, while a young attendant arranged items on the shelves. Welcome, 3 honored guests. May I ask what you need? The thin shopkeeper heard the sound, raised his head, and looked over, showing the customary smile of a merchant. Black Wolf ignored the thin shopkeeper and walked on his own toward the surrounding shelves. Han Li also casually looked around the shop. Although this shop seemed unremarkable, there were actually quite a few valuable rare items among the goods inside. Honored guests, our small shop mainly deals in materials. Although it cannot be considered a top-tier shop in Black Weasel City, we have all kinds of goods and will certainly not disappoint you. The thin shopkeeper did not get angry. He walked out from behind the counter and introduced the shop to Black Wolf, while secretly sizing up Han Li and Sichuan Kong behind him. As the thin shopkeeper observed Han Li was also observing him, and his brows suddenly furrowed. Shopkeeper, besides selling items, does your shop also purchase things? Black Wolf roughly circled the shop and stopped in a corner, asking in a low voice. Naturally, we do. However, we do not accept just anything. It depends on what you wish to sell, the thin shopkeeper said with a start. Black Wolf calmly flipped his hand and took out a black jade box. He opened it slightly, revealing a narrow gap. Threads of terrifying demonic chi fluctuation seeped out from within, and one could faintly see that it was a section of black tree root. The thin shopkeeper's eyes suddenly lit up. Just as he was about to take a closer look, Black Wolf had already closed the jade box. He glanced toward the outside, indicating that this was not a convenient place to inspect it. Fellow Taoists, please follow me. We can discuss in the inner room. As for these 2 fellow Taoists, please wait here for a moment. The thin shopkeeper immediately understood and turned to Han Li and Sichuan Kong. My 2 friends also have some things they wish to sell, Black Wolf interrupted the shopkeeper. Han Li's heart stirred. He flipped his hand and took out a wooden box. Sichuan Kong also took out a wooden case. Even through the wooden box and wooden case, one could still sense threads of astonishing aura fluctuations coming from within. In that case, all 3 of you please follow me, the shopkeeper said with a start, then immediately smiled and led the 3 toward the back. Han Li and Sichuan Kong exchanged a glance before following. The 3 soon arrived in a sealed private room. The space was not small, measuring about 7 or 8 zhang across. The thin shopkeeper formed a hand seal and pointed. A layer of water-like green light restriction appeared on the 4 walls of the private room, instantly cutting them off completely from the outside world. This place is arranged with our unique restriction. Even a Tai-level cultivator with great abilities would not be able to spy on our conversation. Honored guests, you may rest assured, the thin shopkeeper said, inviting the 3 to sit. The restriction here is indeed extraordinary. However, before discussing business, should you not personally come out? I have never had the habit of talking business with puppets. Han Li did not sit. He looked directly at the thin shopkeeper and said with a faint smile. Sichuan Kong and Black Wolf's expressions both changed when they heard this. Then they understood and looked at the thin shopkeeper. This fellow Taoist has excellent eyes. I am becoming more and more interested in this transaction. After a silence, the door of the private room opened again, and another thin middle-aged man walked in with a smile. The shopkeeper inside the private room suddenly became blank-faced, then mechanically stepped outside. Your soul-controlling art is also extremely profound. If I had not cultivated a similar secret technique before, I would not have been able to see through it, Hanli said with a faint smile while secretly sizing up the newcomer. This thin middle-aged man's cultivation had reached the golden immortal stage. However, he wore some sort of treasure that concealed his aura, making his displayed cultivation appear to be only at the true immortal level. Hanli secretly relaxed. If he was only a golden immortal, then there was no need to worry about any danger. You flatter me, fellow Taoist. Please sit. The thin middle-aged man sat down. Hanli and Shi Chuankong sat down, but Black Wolf remained standing. Fellow Taoist, do you still have any questions? The thin middle-aged man asked with a slight frown. Not really. I just feel that meeting you has taken quite a bit of effort. Black Wolf suddenly smiled and said. You! The thin shopkeeper's expression changed when he heard this, and he looked at Black Wolf in alarm and suspicion. Brother Guan, it has been a long time. Black Wolf formed a hand seal and waved. Strands of black chi suddenly appeared over his body like wriggling tentacles with lives of their own. His appearance changed rapidly, turning into a dark-skinned young man with a long face and fierce eyes. His whole person looked like a jackal that had endured months of hunger. Black Wolf's voice also changed, becoming hoarse and sharp. Hanli and Shi Chuankong had already seen that Black Wolf's previous appearance had been an illusion, so they were not surprised. Black Wolf? You are actually still alive. The thin shopkeeper's body trembled, and disbelief appeared on his face. Naturally, I am still alive. But I did not expect Brother Guan to still be staying in Black Weasel City. You truly have courage. The Black Weasel army is searching everywhere outside for traces of us. Yet you hid inside Black Weasel City itself. As expected, the most dangerous place is the safest place, Black Wolf said with a smile. The thin shopkeeper's expression shifted, and killing intent faintly appeared in his eyes. I advise Brother Guan not to think of anything else. Although your strength is not weak, since I dared to appear before you, I naturally made thorough preparations long ago. If I do not walk out of this shop within 1 hour, someone will tell the Black Weasel army everything about you. Besides, these two fellow Taoists are also here, Black Wolf said as he pulled over a chair in the private room and sat down, showing no worry at all. The thin shopkeeper narrowed his eyes when he heard this. He glanced at Hanli and Shi Chuankong, whose faces had remained extremely calm the entire time. His expression soon returned to peace. Speak. Why have you come to find me? Hey, you and I can at least be considered old acquaintances. Brother Guan, why keep people at such a distance? As for why I came here, it is because of these two fellow Taoists. They want to buy some purple sunworm jade in Black Weasel City, so I introduced them here, Black Wolf said with a chuckle, raising a hand and pointing at Hanli and Shi Chuankong. Purple sunworm jade is an extremely precious treasure. How could a small shop like mine possibly have such a thing? If the two fellow Taoists wish to buy it, you might as well visit the truly large merchant houses in the city. Though purple sunworm jade is valuable, those major shops should have some stock, the thin shopkeeper said coldly to Hanli and Shi Chuankong. When Hanli heard this, he only smiled without comment, then turned his gaze toward Black Wolf. Brother Guan, let us speak plainly. That batch of purple sunworm jade was something all of us risked our lives to obtain together. Fellow Taoists Rixie and Rixie even lost their lives for it. You previously stayed hidden and refused to come out, and I was willing to assume you were merely lying low to avoid trouble, so I said nothing more. But if you intend to swallow it all alone, that would be going a little too far, wouldn't it? Black Wolf said coldly, green light shining from both of his eyes. Black Wolf, what do you mean by that? Am I that kind of person? Back then I thought the three of you had already died. Now that I know you are still alive, naturally I would not keep everything for myself. But you told outsiders about this matter. Have you forgotten the oath we swore together that day? The thin shopkeeper said, his expression changing sharply as his voice turned grim. We all swore an oath together that day and planned a great undertaking. As for how Rixie and Rixie died, Brother Guan knows better than anyone. You betrayed us first, yet you still have the face to mention the oath we swore. Black Wolf snorted, his face full of mockery. Black Wolf, since things have already come to this, there is no need to bring up the past. Say it directly. What do you want? The thin shopkeeper looked at the three of them, and the anger on his face slowly faded. Brother Guan, you are holding so much purple sun-warm jade, but still have not left Black Weasel City. On one hand, it is because of the pursuit outside. On the other, I imagine you also want to find a suitable buyer here. These two fellow Taoists are not people of the 10 Hazards Mountains, and their wealth is considerable. This time they came to Black Weasel City seeking to purchase a large amount of purple sun-warm jade. They are the most suitable buyers. I have already reached an agreement with them. Sell that purple sun-warm jade to them at this price, and give me half of the demonic essence stones obtained from the sale. Then the grudges between us will be written off completely. Black Wolf took out a jade slip and tossed it to the thin shopkeeper with a wave of his hand. The thin shopkeeper caught the jade slip and sent his spiritual sense into it. Very soon he withdrew it again. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. Only after a moment did he raise his head. I have no objection to selling the purple sun-warm jade to these two at this price. However, before that, there is one condition the two of you must agree to first, the thin shopkeeper said after a brief pause, looking toward Han Li and Shi Chuankong. Please speak, Han Li said. The two fellow Taoists must swear a heart demon blood oath. After the transaction is completed, you must immediately leave Black Weasel City, and you must not tell a third person anything you saw or heard here today, the thin shopkeeper said, staring at the two of them word by word. That is acceptable. The two of us only wish to buy the purple sun-warm jade. We have no interest in your affairs, Han Li said. He exchanged a glance with Shi Chuankong, then nodded in agreement. The two did not delay. They immediately followed the thin shopkeeper's request and swore the heart demon blood oath. Since the two fellow Taoists have shown such sincerity, I will naturally keep my promise as well. The items are all here. Please inspect them. Seeing Han Li and Shi Chuankong swear the oath, the thin shopkeeper's tense expression eased considerably. With a flip of his hand, he took out a purple storage bracelet and placed it on the nearby table. Seeing this, Han Li flipped his hand and took out 2 storage rings, placing them on the table. Then he picked up the storage bracelet and sent his spiritual sense into it. The thin shopkeeper and Black Wolf each picked up 1 storage ring and quickly inspected them as well. Before long, all 3 withdrew their spiritual sense, and satisfied smiles appeared on their faces. Neither side had played any tricks. The transaction was completed smoothly. Since the transaction is complete, the 3 of you may leave, the thin shopkeeper said bluntly, putting away the storage ring with a flip of his hand and immediately ordering them out. Han Li and Shi Chuankong also had no intention of staying. They rose at once and left. Black Wolf was even less willing to remain than the 2 of them. He was the first to step out of the private room and quickly headed outside, not even greeting Han Li and Shi Chuankong. But at that moment the space above his head flashed. A streak of golden sword energy appeared silently and stabbed downward. The sword energy appeared without the slightest warning, and its speed was unimaginably fast. Even a meteor tearing through the sky or lightning flashing across stone could not fully describe it. There was a soft ripping sound. Black Wolf did not even have time to raise his head before his body was pierced through by the golden sword energy and split in half. Blood and organs splattered everywhere. He was dead beyond any doubt. Han Li and Shi Chuankong's expressions changed at the sight. They immediately drifted backward and retreated into the private room. The thin shopkeeper's face revealed even greater terror, and his hands formed a spell incantation. The restrictions inside the private room flared with brilliant light and were about to unfold again. A golden sword light flashed once more. The entire room was sliced in half as if it were tofu, then collapsed with a rumble. Several sharp sounds rang out. More than a dozen figures clad in black armor appeared around them, surrounding Han Li and the other 2 in the center. The Black Weasel Army. Han Li's pupils shrank, and he immediately recognized their identities. They were elite troops under the command of the Black Weasel King. Moreover, the auras emanating from these people were immense. They were all at the Golden Immortal stage. Immediately afterward, 2 more figures flashed into view in midair and slowly descended. One of them was a young man in his 20s. He was handsome, dressed in a white robe, wearing a square scholar's cap, and holding a white folding fan in his hand. He looked like an elegant young nobleman. The other was a woman in green. Her appearance was delicate and pretty, but both of her eyes were tightly closed as though she were blind. Her expression, however, was completely cold, like an emotionless ice sculpture. In her hand, she held a long golden sword that released dreamlike golden light, making it impossible to see the sword's true appearance. Both of them emitted terrifying pressure as deep as an abyss and vast as the sea. They were both existences of the Tai realm. When the thin shopkeeper saw those two, he let out a terrified cry and suddenly shook his sleeve. A mass of black flame swept out from his body and instantly transformed into a black flaming demon more than 10 zhang tall, with 3 heads and 6 arms. Black flames churned over the demon's body, but they gave off no sense of heat. Instead, they released an incomparably chilling aura that erupted in all directions. Then, with a blur of its 6 arms, they turned into layers of afterimages. Black flaming fist shadows, each the size of a millstone, appeared out of thin air and struck like meteors toward the dozen or so black armored figures around them. At the same time, its 3 heads opened their mouths together and spat out 3 masses of black flame, shooting them toward the 2 people in midair. After doing all this, yellow light flashed over the thin shopkeeper's body. His figure blurred and began sinking into the ground. The white-robed young man gave a cold laugh but did not make a move. The green-clad woman merely moved her arms slightly. Another streak of golden sword energy appeared, flashed past, and still moved at an unbelievable speed. The 3 masses of black flame stopped several zhang in front of the 2 of them, then were all neatly cut in half, brushing past their bodies as they flew by. On the ground, the thin shopkeeper had only just sunk halfway into the earth when his upper body tilted and fell to the ground. He had actually been cut in 2 at the waist, and blood poured out wildly. "Third young master, spare me. I was blinded by greed and only then stole the purple sun warm jade. I am willing to return every piece of warm jade I stole. Please spare my life, third young master. I am willing to sign a servant contract with you and serve by your side for the rest of my life," the thin shopkeeper shouted desperately. The white-robed young man smiled with contempt. Without another word, he flicked his finger. A streak of blood light shot from his hand and disappeared in a flash, piercing into the thin shopkeeper's forehead like a blood-colored dagger. The thin shopkeeper's cries immediately stopped, and the light in his eyes dimmed. The white-robed young man raised his hand and beckoned. The blood light shot back from the thin shopkeeper's forehead. Trapped inside it was a small black figure, none other than the shopkeeper's soul. The little figure struggled desperately, but it had no effect at all. "You caused me to search for so long, and even made my father learn of the matter and reprimand me. And you still dare hope to live? If I do not imprison your soul in soul-devouring fire and torment it for 10,000 years, how could I vent the hatred in my heart?" the white-robed young man said with a savage smile, then opened his mouth and swallowed the black soul. After doing this, the white-robed young man shifted his gaze toward Han Li and Shi Chuankong, a trace of seriousness flashing in his eyes. Just now, both sides had fought fiercely with spells and divine abilities, yet these 2 had stood in the middle of the battlefield as if they were transparent. They had not been affected in the slightest. "Who are you 2? What is your relationship with Guanshang and Black Wolf?" Only now did the white-robed young man land on the ground. He asked Han Li and Shi Chuankong in a rather polite tone. "The 2 of us are merely customers who came to this shop to buy something. We have no relationship with those 2. Since those 2 have now been punished, this has nothing to do with us anymore. Farewell." Han Li cupped his hands toward the white-robed young man, then walked outside. Shi Chuankong followed closely behind him. The white-robed young man's face darkened, and a trace of anger flashed through his eyes. "Impudent! Do you know what status my young master has? How dare you speak to him like that?" A tall black-armored man flashed forward and blocked Han Li's path, shouting angrily. "Move aside," Han Li said, stopping in his tracks, his face expressionless. "You truly do not know life from death. Surrender obediently, and perhaps you can still keep your miserable lives." The black-armored man found it both ridiculous and infuriating. These 2 true immortal ants actually dared to act so arrogantly. However, without the white-robed young man's command, he did not dare attack on his own. "Young master, these 2 were together with Guanshang and Black Wolf. They are most likely accomplices and should be arrested immediately. Another black-armored man shouted. That's right. Back then, we did not know exactly how many thieves infiltrated the mine vein. These two are probably their accomplices as well. Although the Black Weasel King does not allow us to arrest people in the city at will, there is no need to be polite toward criminals who stole our Black Weasel City's important treasure, another person said. After hearing his subordinate's words, the white-robed young man still did not personally make a move. He merely nodded slightly toward the black-armored giant. Seeing this, the giant's eyes flashed with bloodthirsty excitement. His two millstone-like hands suddenly clawed forward into the empty air. A sharp whistling sound rang out. Two massive black claws appeared out of thin air, one on the left and one on the right, above Han Li and Shi Chuankong. They immediately covered both of them beneath them. Then the surfaces of the two giant claws released rolling black chi as they viciously grabbed downward. The claw shadows flashed past, and Han Li and Shi Chuankong's bodies were instantly torn into pieces. But in the next moment, the corpses scattered and vanished. They were only afterimages. Outside the encirclement of the Black Weasel army, the void rippled slightly, and Han Li and Shi Chuankong's figures appeared clearly. They continued walking outside. The previous attack seemed to have had no effect on them at all. Everyone's expression changed at the sight, and the white-robed young man's pupils also shrank. The green-clad woman who seemed blind furrowed her delicate brows slightly and said softly, "Spatial law." A trace of alarm appeared in the black-armored giant's eyes. After glancing at the white-robed young man, black light erupted from his entire body. His figure instantly grew several times taller, hair sprouted all over him, and sharp fangs appeared in his mouth. He had actually taken on a half-demon form, and his aura clearly surged far beyond before. Playing tricks, he let out a furious roar and suddenly leaped into the air. His two pitch-black fists, each as large as a water barrel, smashed fiercely toward Han Li and Shi Chuankong from behind. Han Li did not even turn his head. One of his arms blurred, and a palm struck backward, seeming slow yet actually swift. It landed squarely on the black-armored giant's fist, and golden light flashed over his palm. A huge muffled boom rang out, mixed with the sound of cracking bones. The black-armored giant's enormous body seemed to suffer a heavy blow and flew backward like a bundle of straw. He crashed straight into a nearby building, causing it to collapse with a thunderous crash as dust and smoke billowed up. From beginning to end, the giant did not even manage to let out a scream. After landing, he seemed to have fainted outright. When the Black Weasel Army cultivators present saw this, their faces immediately filled with shock. To defeat a half-demon golden immortal stage beast known for its physical body with a casual palm strike, leaving him unable to resist at all, was something perhaps not even an ordinary Tai realm beast could achieve. By now, no matter how slow their reactions were, they understood that Han Li and Shi Chuankong had clearly used some special method to conceal their cultivation aura. Everyone's gaze turned toward the white-robed young man. After that strike, Han Li still did not turn back. He continued walking calmly side by side with Shi Chuankong. However, none of the Black Weasel Army cultivators present, including the green-clad woman, attempted to stop them again. The white-robed young man's eyes flickered slightly, as though he were considering something. At that moment, a short, black-armored middle-aged man flashed to his side and whispered a few words to him. After hearing this, the white-robed young man's expression did not change at all, but his figure blurred without warning and vanished from where he stood. "Please wait, you two," the white-robed young man said in a deep voice as his figure flashed into existence in front of Han Li and Shi Chuankong. Blood light flickered over his body, and streams of blood-colored mist surged out from within him. In an instant, they turned into a dense blood cloud that rolled and churned, looking as though it could blot out the sky and cover the sun. As the blood cloud rolled, it released waves of heart-shaking law fluctuations. It was impossible to tell what law it belonged to. Han Li and Shi Chuankong stopped. After exchanging a glance, Shi Chuankong frowned and said, "What else do you want? The two of us have abided by the law in Black Weasel City. We are in a hurry now and cannot afford to be delayed. You two are not people of the 10 Hazards Mountains. I can choose not to investigate why you entered the city this time. However, I hope you will hand over the purple sunworm jade you obtained from Guanshang and Black Wolf," the white-robed young man said slowly. What purple sun-warmed jade? We only happened to come to this small shop to buy a few things. Before we had even bought anything, you people rushed in and killed those two without asking any questions. What bad luck, Shi Chuankong said, spreading his hands in surprise. In that case, hand over the storage treasures on your bodies and let me inspect them. If there truly is no purple sun-warmed jade inside, the two of you may leave on your own, the white-robed young man said, his voice sinking slightly. I already said we are in a hurry. Does the Black Weasel army really act so unreasonably? Shi Chuankong said angrily. Although the two of you have profound cultivation, you had better think carefully. This is Black Weasel City. Do not refuse the toast only to drink the punishment wine, the white-robed young man said with a light laugh. As he spoke, the golden immortal cultivators of the Black Weasel army had already closed in from both sides and surrounded Han Li and Shi Chuankong in the middle. Seeing it with my own eyes is indeed different from merely hearing about it. Black Weasel City claims to encourage commerce and advocate free trade. I never expected it to be this unbearable. Such empty reputation is truly disappointing. Han Li, who had remained silent until now, suddenly said with a cold laugh. What did you say? You dare slander my father? The white-robed young man's expression changed and he shouted sharply. Your honored father built Black Weasel City here in the uncivilized 10 Hazards Mountains, and has painstakingly managed it for so many years. He can be considered famous and respected. Even we in the Holy Realm never expected that the Black Weasel army under his command would commit such bandit-like acts. Am I wrong? Han Li asked in return. Today's matter has special circumstances. If you truly did not take that stolen batch of purple sun-warmed jade, I will naturally apologize to you both, the white-robed young man snorted coldly. As soon as his voice fell, the blood cloud surrounding him rolled violently and swept out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, Han Li and Shi Chuankong found themselves surrounded by a vast sea of blood. Large waves of blood surged toward the two of them. Seeing this, Han Li opened his mouth and spat. A burst of golden light suddenly appeared and shot out with extreme speed. In a flash, it arrived before the white-robed young man. The white-robed young man was slightly startled by the golden light's speed. He immediately formed a hand seal and waved. A blood-colored rainbow flew from his sleeve, also moving with astonishing speed, and wrapped around the ball of golden light. It was a blood-colored gauze, as thin as a cicada's wing, and it looked extremely extraordinary. But at that moment the golden light blurred and suddenly transformed into 12 small golden swords, each only several inches long. Each sword trembled faintly, and thin golden arcs of lightning continuously leaped from their tips. When the white-robed young man saw this, his expression changed slightly, and he was about to do something. The thin golden arcs on the 12 small golden swords suddenly shone brilliantly, and the power of thunder law contained within them erupted like raging waves. With a ripping sound, the blood-colored gauze was instantly torn apart and turned into scattered scraps of cloth. The next moment, the 12 small golden swords transformed into 12 streaks of lightning and stabbed viciously toward the white-robed young man, who was right in front of them. Brother Li, spare him! Shi Chuankong hurriedly called out at the sight. Ah! The white-robed young man finally showed panic. The sea of blood around him rapidly contracted and wrapped around his body, trying to block the attack. At the same time he raised his hand, intending to summon another treasure. But before he could bring out anything, the 12 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords had already easily broken through the blood cloud around him and instantly pierced into his body, passing straight through. More than a dozen bloody holes were immediately opened in the white-robed young man's limbs. He let out a scream and collapsed to the ground, his eyes full of terror. The rolling blood cloud around him gave a muffled burst and completely exploded, scattering away. Han Li ignored the white-robed young man and turned around like lightning. At the same time he flicked a finger. A small azure sword shot from his sleeve and transformed in a flash into a cold azure sword light, slashing toward the empty space to his front left. A golden sword light appeared there silently out of thin air and slashed toward Han Li, but it was blocked by the azure sword light. A loud metallic clash rang out. The azure and golden sword lights suddenly flared and exploded outward. The nearby void twisted, buzzing continuously. The power of the two sword lights seemed evenly matched, and they froze there in a stalemate. Behind the golden sword light, the green-clad woman's figure emerged. A trace of shock appeared on her cold, statue-like face. Your sword is not bad. Unfortunately, your sword cultivation is far too poor. Hanli snorted coldly. The green-clad woman moved and was about to do something, but a sudden wave of intense pain struck her mind, as though a red-hot iron spike had stabbed into it. She could not help letting out a muffled groan, and her body stiffened. At that very moment, a finger blurred and appeared at the center of the green-clad woman's brow, then tapped down. A golden arc of lightning shot out and entered her forehead. A crackling sound rang out. A dazzling flash of golden lightning erupted in midair, leaving behind a scorched smell. The green-clad woman let out a miserable groan. Her entire body instantly turned charred black, like a rotten piece of wood struck by lightning, and she dropped to the ground with a thud, losing consciousness. The golden treasured sword also appeared and fell to the ground with a clang. The dazzling golden light on its surface vanished without a trace, revealing its golden yellow blade. From the white-robed young man's attack to Hanli subduing both of them in one breath, the sequence seemed long when described, but in truth it happened in the blink of an eye. The Black Weasel army cultivators were all left dumbstruck at the sight. Hanli's eyes flickered slightly. Then he suddenly turned his head toward the other black-armored men and snorted coldly again. When the Black Weasel army cultivators saw Hanli look over, their expressions immediately changed. They were just about to defend themselves when intense pain suddenly erupted in all their minds at the same time. They all clutched their heads and cried out in agony. Hanli formed hand seals with both hands, then flicked all 10 fingers outward. Sharp hissing sounds rang out. More than a dozen golden arcs of lightning shot from his hands and struck those men with perfect accuracy. Dazzling golden lightning flashed, and those men also turned completely charred black, collapsing unconscious to the ground. After repeatedly using the spirit-stunning thorn, Hanli had consumed quite a bit of spiritual sense power, and his face turned slightly pale. However, after taking a deep breath, he recovered and looked toward the only person still conscious, the stunned white-robed young man. The white-robed young man opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something, but Hanli only flicked a finger without expression. A streak of golden lightning shot out and struck his forehead in a flash. Dazzling golden light flashed, and the white-robed young man's entire body also turned charred black as he fainted. Fellow Taoist Li, that move was truly impressive. But it seems we can no longer remain here, Shi Chuankong said with admiration on his face, though a bitter smile escaped his lips. Since our goal has already been achieved, there is no need to stay, Hanli said with a faint smile. He did not touch any of the demonic artifacts, treasures, or storage treasures belonging to the people present. An incense stick's time later, on the main road of Black Weasel City, Hanli and Shi Chuankong walked hurriedly toward the northern gate. At this moment, if not for the fear of drawing even more attention, they would have already taken out a flying shuttle and fled. The journey from here onward probably will not be peaceful again, Hanli said, his brows tightly furrowed. Who knew our luck would be this bad? Of all people to encounter, we just had to run into the Black Weasel army. But perhaps this is also fine. We should leave the 10 Hazards Mountains as soon as possible, Shi Chuankong said with a sigh, feeling deeply unlucky. As soon as the two finished speaking, they stopped at the same time, their expressions stiffening as they looked ahead as though facing a great enemy. On the road before them, among the stream of people coming and going, a young scholar wearing a square cap and holding a book was slowly walking toward them. He had delicate features, and the light ripples in his green scholar's robe made him look extremely refined and elegant. Hanli and Shi Chuankong exchanged a glance, both smiling bitterly in their hearts. Although this was the first time they had seen the newcomer in person, he was not unfamiliar to them. He was none other than the famous Black Weasel King. The Black Weasel King walked with a calm and relaxed gait. No fluctuations came from his body at all. He looked exactly like an ordinary scholar from the mortal world, with a faint smile on his face and a harmless appearance. When he came closer, he held the book in both hands and actually bowed slightly to Hanli and Shi Chuankong in the manner of a scholar. He took the initiative to speak. 13th Prince, you have honored Black Weasel City with your presence. Forgive me for failing to welcome you from afar. Shi Chuankong froze only for an instant before a gentle smile also appeared on his face. He respectfully returned the bow and said, Senior, such courtesy truly overwhelms this junior. Hanli frowned slightly but said nothing. He merely followed with a bow. This is not a suitable place to speak, nor is it the proper way for Black Weasel City to receive guests. Why not move a few steps and sit in my Yushio Palace? The Black Weasel King said. Seeing their response, the smile on his face seemed a little more sincere. Then we shall trouble you, Sichuan Kong said. The two of them had no room to refuse. The Black Weasel King smiled when he heard this and said, Please. With only a wave of his hand, a patch of black light lit up beneath the three of them at the same time. The next moment, the scenery shifted around them, and they arrived in a vast green garden. Inside the garden, exotic flowers and strange grasses grew everywhere. Jagged rocks were placed as decoration, and winding paths disappeared into lush groves and slender bamboo. Amid the quiet elegance, birdsong rang sweetly. Scattered throughout were many pavilions, terraces, towers, and halls, all designed with remarkable delicacy and ingenuity. Each step revealed a new scene, and the place was extraordinarily beautiful. As they went deeper, the scenery in the garden changed in many different ways. One section was filled with the splendor of spring flowers in brilliant colors, while the next became a snowy landscape wrapped in silver and white. There were also all kinds of rare beasts and strange birds inside, making it quite extraordinary. Senior Black Weasel, I have long heard that Black Weasel City contains a garden called the Scenic Gathering Garden. Its scenery is pleasant, and it contains different views for all 4 seasons. Seeing it today, it is truly remarkable, Sichuan Kong said, lagging slightly half a step behind. It is only some crude countryside scenery. How could it compare to the sights of Yeyang City? The Black Weasel King said, though a hint of pride flashed through his eyes. Neither of them mentioned the earlier conflict with the Black Weasel Army and the Black Weasel King's son. They simply chatted casually all the way until they arrived before a cluster of vermilion buildings. 13th Prince, let us speak in Zhongling Hall. As for this fellow Taoist Li, may he move to Spring Water Hall and wait there with some tea, the Black Weasel King said, stopping before a vermilion hall topped with glazed tiles. Han Li lowered his gaze slightly and looked toward Sichuan Kong. The latter silently nodded to him. We shall follow Senior Black Weasel's arrangement, Sichuan Kong said with a smile. After that, Han Li was led by a beautiful palace made standing before the hall. He passed through layers of corridors and went to Spring Water Hall, while Sichuan Kong followed the Black Weasel King into Yushio Palace. Inside Spring Water Hall, palace maids had already prepared tea. Han Li sat quietly in the hall and began tasting the tea. Meanwhile, in Zhongling Hall, Sichuan Kong followed the Black Weasel King into the main hall, one walking in front and the other behind. As the hall doors slowly closed, Sichuan Kong's expression remained normal, but cold sweat faintly seeped from his back. He looked around the interior and saw that this place did not resemble a council hall. Instead, it seemed more like a study or quiet scholar's retreat. 2/3 of the entire hall was occupied by wide blackwood bookshelves. On them were neatly arranged volumes of green-covered books, packed so densely that there were likely several 100,000 in total. After Sichuan Kong glanced over them briefly, he discovered that most of these books were collections of poetry, essays, and common novels. Mixed among them were Taoist classics and Buddhist teachings. There were almost no cultivation manuals. On the walls around the hall hung finely mounted calligraphy works. Most of them were written with ancient poems, as well as prophetic sayings and verses from Buddhism and Taoism. The brushwork could only be described as proper and steady, without much spirit or force. Senior Black Weasel has refined tastes, a vast collection of books, and vigorous calligraphy. This junior truly admires you, Sichuan Kong said, forcing down the discomfort in his heart. In this remote and wild place, most people are uncivilized brutes who drink blood and eat raw flesh. There are far too few people with discerning eyes like the 13th Prince. No wonder I felt like an old friend the moment I met you. Haha, the Black Weasel King laughed heartily. By the way, earlier in the city there was a slight conflict with your son. That was truly. Before Sichuan Kong could finish, the Black Weasel King raised a hand and interrupted him. It was only a minor scuffle. You need not take it to heart. I invited you to my Yushio Palace. How could it be for such trivial matters? The Black Weasel King said. his expression becoming restrained as he looked at Shi Chuankong with a meaningful gaze. If it is not for such a minor matter, then it must be for something important, Shi Chuankong said, his expression turning slightly serious. The 13th prince is an intelligent man, so I will not beat around the bush. Because of the matter of the inheritance, Yeong City has now become treacherous and unpredictable, causing storms to rise throughout the entire Holy Realm. Many forces, both openly and secretly, are making their choices. Although our 10 Hazards Mountains are remote and have always been neglected, once the time comes we will inevitably be affected as well. Therefore, I have no choice but to make plans early. The Black Weasel King walked to a bookshelf, returned the book in his hand to its place and spoke. Regarding the inheritance, the Holy Clan has always kept it deeply concealed. I also have no intention of competing for it. I simply did not expect that after being away from the Holy Realm for so long, things would have already developed to this stage by the time I returned, Shi Chuankong said with a sigh. A bright pearl will shine no matter where it is placed. Even if the 13th prince had not returned to the Holy Realm, you still could not avoid the attention of others, the Black Weasel King said with an obscure look in his eyes, his expression seeming to smile yet not smile. Senior Black Weasel, why do you say this? Shi Chuankong naturally heard the implication in his words. His brows lifted slightly, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. As everyone knows among the Holy Lord's 13 children, the eldest prince Shi Zhanfeng has the widest and strongest influence. The only one who can contend with him is the third prince, Shi Pokong, who possesses the greatest talent. You and the third prince were born of the same mother and share the closest relationship. Therefore, everyone outside knows that you are definitely aligned under the third prince, the Black Weasel King said, his eyes shining. So that is it. Senior Black Weasel wants to use me to place your bet on my third brother, Shi Chuankong said in sudden understanding. Before I first received the eldest prince's kill order, I had intended to place my bet on him. After all, the benefits he promised me were far too generous. However, when I learned that you and that attendant of yours had successively slain the 2 feathered battle generals under that gold rhinoceros fellow, my mind wavered. The Black Weasel King continued. Shi Chuankong frowned slightly. He knew that the Black Weasel King had misunderstood Han Li's identity. Then he suddenly remembered Han Li had once said that when escaping the gold rhinoceros king's pursuit, he had sensed another powerful aura. Senior Black Weasel, at the border previously, was it you who lent a hand, causing that gold rhinoceros fellow not to continue pursuing us? Shi Chuankong asked. That is correct. In truth, even before that I had been paying attention to your movements. However, I originally planned to wait until he forced you to reveal all your methods and fight him until both sides were shattered. Then I would step in and reap the benefits. But after seeing you escape from him twice, I changed my mind. I decided to protect you and switch my support to the third prince. But now, the Black Weasel King suddenly stopped halfway through his words and looked at Shi Chuankong with an amused expression. Shi Chuankong immediately felt his whole body tighten, but he relaxed again soon after and met the Black Weasel King's gaze calmly. Since things had already reached this point, the situation could not get much worse. Haha. After meeting you in person, I have decided to place my bet on you, 13th Prince, the Black Weasel King said with a loud laugh. Shi Chuankong almost could not believe his ears. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, You want to place your bet on me? Why? If I said it was because the 13th Prince has a discerning eye and recognized true talent, so I am returning the favor, would you believe me? The Black Weasel King asked, his smile fading. Senior, you are. Shi Chuankong shook his head without hesitation and was about to say more. The 13th Prince possesses enormous potential. It simply has yet to reveal itself. Moreover, the fact that you have such an attendant by your side, and that the eldest prince is willing to spare no cost to have you killed, already explains many things, the Black Weasel King said with a chuckle. Senior Black Weasel's boldness is extraordinary. This junior admires it, Shi Chuankong said slowly with a non-committal smile. Since the 13th Prince has no objection, let us next discuss something more practical, the Black Weasel King said with a smile. Time passed and almost half a day went by. Han Li had remained in Spring Water Hall drinking tea the entire time. During this period, no one came to speak with him. Only a few enchanting palace maids continuously refilled his tea. His face was as calm as still water, but waves surged in his heart, filled with hidden worry. Just as his patience was about to run out and he was preparing to force his way out, he saw Shi Chuankong and the Black Weasel King walk in from outside, talking and laughing together. They looked as though host and guest had both enjoyed themselves thoroughly. It is rare for honored guests to visit Black Weasel City. You should stay in Yushio Palace for a while so that I may properly fulfill my duties as host. As for returning to Xiongju City, there is no need to worry too much. I will make the arrangements, the Black Weasel King said with a smile. Then we will trouble Senior Black Weasel, Shi Chuankong also said with a smile. After that, under the Black Weasel King's arrangement, the two of them temporarily stayed in a side hall within Yushio Palace. Hanli naturally had doubts about everything that had happened after they encountered the Black Weasel King, but he did not ask about it. At first, he had thought that his own breakthrough had drawn the attention of these demonic beast kings, causing them to be hunted. Now, however, he felt that the matter was not so simple. Shi Chuankong seemed to be the true target of the pursuit. As for why the Black Weasel King, one of the 10 perils, had treated Shi Chuankong with such courtesy this time, it was likely related to his identity. Since Shi Chuankong seemed unwilling to explain, Hanli did not find it convenient to press him. No matter what, they were currently inside the 10 Perils mountain range. His best choice was to rely on Shi Chuankong for the time being and wait until they left this place before making further plans. 3 days later, Hanli and Shi Chuankong set out for Xiongju City, through the secret trade route established between Black Weasel City and Xiongju City. Several months later, in the southern part of the Demon Realm, a long and steep mountain range stretched across the land like a natural barrier between the 10 Perils mountain range and the Fengguang Plain. In a slightly lower mountain pass near its center stood a massive city wall several hundred feet tall. The wall was built from huge black stones, and countless complex runes were engraved across its surface. A faint mist shrouded it, giving it a gray and hazy appearance. Above the wall, a huge plaque could vaguely be seen, bearing the words Xiongju City. Below the plaque was an enormous arched gateway, with a smaller side gate on each side. The largest main gate and the gate on the left were both shut tight. Only the gate on the right was open. On both the inner and outer sides stood teams of demon guards in pitch-black armor. There were few pedestrians near the gate, making the place look rather desolate. Outside the city, along a road that grew more barren the farther it extended from the city, 2 figures walked side by side, slowly approaching the gate. One of them was tall and burly, with dark skin, rugged features, and a single black horn growing from his brow. He wore a suit of green hide armor. The other was not as tall as the first, and his appearance was very similar to that of a human, except for a few golden scales on both sides of his cheeks, which still revealed some signs of demon blood. Brother Shi, why did we not enter the city together with the trade caravan arranged by the Black Weasel King earlier? Why did we have to split off halfway and enter Xiongju City separately? The man with golden scales on his cheeks asked. Brother Li, you may not know this, but although Xiongju City has business dealings with the Black Weasel King, those dealings are still private transactions done in the shadows. They cannot be brought into the open. With my special identity, it would be even more inappropriate for me to get involved in them, the tall man explained. These two were none other than Hanli and Shi Chuankong, who had returned all the way from the 10 Perils mountain range. As they spoke, the two arrived at the city gate and were immediately stopped by the guards. Show your travel passes, said the leading demon guard, who had the appearance of a wolf-like beast, extending his hand toward them. Shi Chuankong grinned. With a turn of his wrist, he took out 2 black jade tokens, each about the size of a palm, and handed them over. The demon guard accepted them and examined them carefully for a moment. Then he looked up at Hanli and Shi Chuankong and asked, "These passes were issued by the Yu Mountain Earl Manor. That place is so far from Xiongju City. Why are you entering through this pass? We are merely running errands for our superiors. No matter how far it is, we still have to do as ordered, do we not?" Shi Chuankong said with an apologetic smile. "The passes are in order. Go in," the demon guard said, handing the 2 black jade tokens back. "Many thanks." Shi Chuankong quickly gave his thanks, then led Hanli into the gateway. After walking into the arched passage, Shi Chuankong handed one of the jade tokens to Han Li and said, "We will need this quite often for the next while. You should keep one on you as well." "What is this Mountain Earl Manor mentioned on the travel pass?" Han Li asked as he took the jade token. "The Sacred Realm is different from your Immortal Realm. Although there are also various factions occupying different territories, broadly speaking, my father is still regarded as the common lord. Beneath him are various kings, dukes, marquises, counts, and earls who govern different regions and forces. This Mountain Earl is one of them," Shi Chuankong explained. "Then as the son of the demon lord, should you not belong to the level of a king?" Han Li nodded and asked. "In the Sacred Realm, bloodline is certainly important, but in the end, strength is still supreme. To receive a title at the level of a king, one's cultivation must at least reach the great encompassment stage. One also needs certain achievements or support from a faction behind them. I currently have no fief, so naturally I have no title either. However, I can mobilize most of Guangyuan House's resources," Shi Chuankong said with a bitter smile. "So that is how it is," Han Li said with a nod. The thickness of this city wall far exceeded Han Li's expectations. The passage beneath it was actually over 100 feet long. The two slowly walked out of the gate passage. With nothing above their heads anymore, the sky suddenly brightened, giving them a feeling of openness. However, the moment Han Li stepped out of the city gate, his brows could not help but furrow slightly. He was not quite used to it. The demonic qi within Xiongju City was several times denser than outside the city. During their journey north, Han Li had already noticed that the farther north they traveled, the denser the demonic qi between heaven and earth became. Even so, the fact that the demonic qi changed so drastically across a single city wall still caught him somewhat off guard. When Xiongju City was first built, the Sacred Realm invited an array formation grandmaster to reinforce it. The formation can trap the demonic qi of heaven and earth inside the city. Once we leave the city and continue north, the demonic qi may not necessarily be denser than it is here, Shi Chuankong said with a smile when he saw the strange look on Han Li's face. Compared to Xiongju City, the Ten Perils mountain range truly can be considered a wild region with thin demonic qi, Han Li said with a nod. "Brother Li, can you adapt to this change in demonic qi? If you truly cannot, I have a qi-locking pill here. If you place it in your abdomen, it can help lock away the demonic qi that enters your body," Shi Chuankong asked. "No need. If it is only at this level, then it is not much of a problem. I do not feel too uncomfortable," Han Li said, shaking his head. "That is true. Fellow Taoist Li is already a Tai stage cultivator, after all. Even if you do not resist this amount of demonic qi, it will not affect you much," Shi Chuankong said with a smile. Inside the city gate was a wide square. Farther inward, a straight stone-paved avenue led directly toward the center of the city. Buildings stood on both sides in an orderly arrangement, becoming taller and grander the closer they were to the center. The architectural style of Xiongju City was rather unique. Most of its buildings were built from massive black stones, and the roofs were mostly domed or pointed. The sloped, overhanging roof structures common in the Immortal Realm were rarely seen here. In addition, the walls and eaves were often decorated with exquisite carvings and patterns. The most common among them were sculptures of strange beasts in all shapes and forms. There were also quite a few sculptures of enchanting women with wings on their backs. Along the way, Han Li was greatly amazed by what he saw. In the districts near the city gate, shops were sparse. Most were small businesses with low doors and modest storefronts. The pedestrians passing through also looked listless, giving the area a somewhat bleak feeling. However, the farther they moved into the city, the more people appeared on the streets, and the livelier it became. "Are we going directly to the City Lord Manor next to borrow the teleportation array?" Han Li asked. "There is no rush. There is a branch of Guangyuan House in Xiongju City. Let us go there first," Shi Chuankong said with a smile. Han Li nodded and said nothing more. Before long, the two arrived at a beast carriage station in the city and paid to hire a beast carriage. The driver guided the carriage along the main avenue, heading all the way toward the northern part of the city. As they passed through the city, Han Li saw from afar a large cluster of tall buildings covering a vast area, half hidden among a green garden. "That should be the City Lord Manor, right?" Han Li asked. "That is correct. That is the City Lord Manor. The current city lord is Marquis Donhua, Shi Chuankong said after glancing over. Marquis Donhua? Hanli asked with some confusion. If it were an ordinary city, its lord would at most be at the level of an earl, such as Earl Fanyong or Earl Qinglan. Xiongju city is different from other places. It guards the southern wilderness and prevents invasions from the Ten Perils mountain range, so its duty is significant. That is why a marquis is stationed here. In fact, the vast territory north of Xiongju city is also under his jurisdiction, Shi Chuankong explained. So that is the case, Hanli murmured, nodding slightly. The beast carriage bypassed the city lord manor and continued north, then turned into a very grand street. On both sides of the street, impressive buildings with hanging plaques stood one after another. They were all shops selling magic treasures, pills, and similar goods. As soon as they entered this street, the flow of people immediately became dense, and the beast carriage had no choice but to slow down. It carried the two of them forward at a gradual pace. The driver had originally wanted to introduce the shops along the street to them, and while he was at it, recommend a few stores that would give him a commission. However, after exchanging only a few words, he discovered that the rough, dark-skinned man was not unfamiliar with Xiongju city at all, so he tactfully shut his mouth. Along the way, Shi Chuankong explained to Hanli the background of many shops they saw. Though he looked rough, he was actually quite meticulous, and his explanations were very orderly. Brother Shi, why are you so familiar with Xiongju city? Hanli asked, his eyes flickering. Shi Chuankong did not answer aloud. Instead, he replied through voice transmission. When I first began getting involved in Guangyun House's business, I started here in Xiongju city. That is why I know so much about the situation in the Ten Perils mountain range. So this place can be considered Brother Shi's main base, Hanli said, nodding in realization. You could say that. Shi Chuankong grinned. As the two were speaking, a 7-story building appeared on the opposite side of the road. It also had a pointed roof, decorated with elegant and magnificent sculptures as well as all kinds of complex patterns. A vertical plaque hung from it, bearing the words Guangyun House. When the beast carriage drew close, Hanli thought they were about to reach their destination. Unexpectedly, Shi Chuankong merely glanced at Guangyun House's entrance, then turned his gaze forward and instructed the driver to continue. Why pass by Guangyun House without entering? Hanli frowned slightly and asked through voice transmission. This? Shi Chuankong hesitated. Brother Shi, although I agreed to return to Yeyang City with you, this is not the only path I can take. If you intend to hide certain things from me, then forgive me, but I will find it difficult to continue traveling with you. It would be better for us to part ways here, Hanli transmitted. Brother Li, do not be anxious. Let me settle down first, and then I will explain the reason to you in detail. How does that sound? Shi Chuankong sighed and replied through voice transmission. Hanli did not speak. After thinking for a moment, he silently nodded. The two remained silent all the way as the beast carriage reached the end of the street, then turned into a small alley. At the entrance of the alley, Shi Chuankong told the carriage to stop. He asked Hanli to wait a moment, then got off and walked alone into a small, low shop at the end of the alley. There was no signboard above the shop. Only a coarse cloth banner hung over the door, bearing the words Traveler's House, with the side profile of a porter drawn beneath it. After about half the time it takes an incense stick to burn, Shi Chuankong walked out of the shop and climbed back into the beast carriage. The driver then drove the carriage toward the east of the city, finally stopping in front of an inn called Cloud-Wreathed Mountain. The inn was built in a remote area in the eastern part of the city. The surrounding trees were lush and dense, and towering ancient trees were even more numerous than the pavilion-like buildings. Hidden among them, this simple and ancient-looking inn truly had a quiet, winding path charm. After paying the carriage fee, Shi Chuankong pushed open a peeling wooden door in the inn's front courtyard and led Hanli inside. The moment Hanli stepped into the courtyard, he felt a wave of spatial fluctuations ripple around him. The scenery before his eyes suddenly changed, and he found himself standing inside a spacious garden. Not far away, a stream flowed gently. A winding corridor bridge crossed through a small lake covered in rising white mist, presenting a delicate and refined scene before Hanli's eyes. Honored guests, are you here for a short rest or lodging? At that moment, A charming woman whose appearance was no different from that of a human walked out from a hall on the left and asked, "Are the Yoha Courtyard and Shulu Courtyard still available?" Shi Chuankong asked. "My apologies, honored guests. The Yoha Courtyard is still vacant, but the Shulu Courtyard has been reserved long-term by a certain lord and cannot be rented out. If you do not mind, there is still a Qingshao Courtyard available. It is also an elegant and quiet place," the woman said after a slight start. "I almost forgot about that," Shi Chuankong said, suddenly remembering that Shulu Courtyard had been his own usual residence in the past and was generally not rented to others. He rubbed his forehead and laughed. "Then we will take those 2 courtyards." After completing all the arrangements, Shi Chuankong dismissed the female servant assigned by the inn to lead the way and personally took Hanli across the corridor bridge and small lake, heading deeper into the inn. Along the way, they could see exquisite courtyards scattered around, each wrapped in its own array formation. Shi Chuankong accompanied Hanli through a sea of green bamboo and arrived at the 2-story Qingshao Courtyard building. Using the token given by Cloud-Wreathed Mountain Inn, Hanli opened the restrictions around the small courtyard and entered the building together with Shi Chuankong. The first floor was a guest room divided into an inner and outer chamber. Hanli and Shi Chuankong sat down around a round table in the inner chamber. "Brother Shi, you can speak now," Hanli said. He formed a hand seal with one hand, pointed into the air, and a soundproof light barrier enveloped the surrounding area. "Brotherly this. I hardly know where to begin," Shi Chuankong said after a brief silence. "Then start from the Gold Rhinoceros King's pursuit of us. I originally thought the commotion caused by my breakthrough was too great and had drawn his hostility and pursuit. But judging from what happened afterward, it was not that simple, was it?" Hanli said calmly. "You guessed correctly, brotherly. The reason the Gold Rhinoceros King pursued us so relentlessly was indeed because his target was me. He was acting under my elder brother's orders when he chased us without letting up," Shi Chuankong said with a sigh. "Your elder brother? Meaning the eldest son of the demon lord. Why does he want to kill you?" Hanli asked, his brows furrowing slightly. "That? I cannot explain it to you in detail. In short, it involves an extremely important inheritance of our sacred race. My elder brother likely believes that I might threaten his position in obtaining that inheritance, so he joined forces with that gold rhinoceros fellow and tried to eliminate me completely," Shi Chuankong said after hesitating slightly. "You share the same father, yet he wants to kill his own brother?" Hanli frowned. "Is this not the same kind of thing that happens when princes in mortal dynasties fight for the throne? It is nothing strange. Besides, that elder brother only shares my father, not my mother. This is not the first time something like this has happened. It is just that I was not targeted in the past. After all, I was merely a golden immortal and could not threaten his position," Shi Chuankong said with a self-mocking smile. "Clearly, because of something that happened, your existence has now become a threat to him," Hanli said meaningfully. Shi Chuankong fell silent for a long while after hearing this. He already had an answer in his heart, and he slowly said, "Most likely it is because I retrieved the Luaja Pipa this time and made a great contribution, and also because father did not hesitate to spend enormous resources to rescue me from the Grey Realm. I am afraid the latter matter accounts for a greater share," Hanli said after pondering. "Perhaps. Even when many of his children have encountered danger outside, father has rarely taken action personally to save them. This may have caused my elder brother to mistakenly believe that father holds me in special regard, which is why he became wary of me," Shi Chuankong said. "There should be more than one person with that idea. The reason the Black Weasel King did not hold us accountable for the trouble we caused in his city, and instead escorted us back to Xiongju City must also be because he wanted to place his bet on you, correct?" Hanli raised an eyebrow and asked. "Brotherly truly has a clear mind and sees through everything. The Black Weasel King indeed has such an intention," Shi Chuankong said, first startled, then nodding. "Since your elder brother has already decided to kill you, his follow-up methods will definitely not be limited to the Gold Rhinoceros King. Now that we have arrived in Xiongju City, why not take the teleportation array directly and return to Yeong City as soon as possible? Once we get there, things should be much safer, should they not? Or is it that you do not trust Marquis Donhua at the City Lord Manor?" Hanli nodded and asked. "When I was managing things in Xiongju City, The one stationed in the City Lord Manor was not Marquis Tianyue. He was transferred here after I left. The reason we went by the Guangyuan house branch first was to verify whether there had been any changes in Xiongju City. Sure enough, there was a hidden warning mark outside Guangyuan house. That means the trusted subordinates I left behind before have already been purged. Therefore, the City Lord Manor cannot be trusted either, Shi Chuankong said, shaking his head. In that case, why do we not leave as soon as possible? Why stay here instead? Han Li asked, his heart stirring. My elder brother contacted the Black Weasel King earlier and ordered him to intercept and kill us. Later, however, Black Weasel chose to gamble and place his bet on me. Therefore, he will report false information, claiming that we are still fleeing in the Ten Perils mountain range. For the time being, Xiongju City is still safe, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. Creating confusion and staying instead of leaving. It seems Brother Shi has reinforcements. That shop you went to in the alley earlier. Was it to send a message requesting help? Han Li asked with a half-smile. I sent a message to my third elder brother. Before he sends people here, we will temporarily rest and recuperate at Cloud-Wreathed Mountain Inn, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. This third elder brother of yours? Han Li frowned and spoke slowly. Brother Li, you can rest assured. He is different from my eldest brother. He and I share the same mother, and I once saved his life. If even he cannot be trusted, then there is no one in the entire sacred realm who can be trusted, Shi Chuankong interrupted. That would be best, Han Li said with a nod. It was wrong of me to hide things from you earlier. It is just that the reasons behind all this are truly difficult to speak of. I ask Brother Li to forgive me. Although Brother Li and I have not known each other for long, we have gone through dangers together. Even if we cannot be called friends who would die for one another, we have at least shared hardship in the same boat. Naturally, I trust you, Shi Chuankong said, standing up and giving Han Li a solemn bow. Brother Shi, to be honest, I truly do not wish to be dragged into the internal conflict between you brothers. However, on the road back to Yeyang City, your life and mine are tied together. I will naturally do my utmost, but I also hope you will not hide anything from me again, Han Li said gravely as he also stood up. Brother Li, do not worry. I have told you everything and hidden nothing more. After we reach Yeyang City, I will also do my utmost to fulfill what I promised you back then, Shi Chuankong said, patting his chest. After the two cleared up their doubts, they chatted for a short while before Shi Chuankong took his leave. Han Li sat alone in silence for a moment, then rose and activated the restrictions around the small courtyard. After returning to the second floor of the small building, he laid down another layer of restrictions inside the quiet chamber. With a casual wave of his hand, a silver door of light opened. He slowly stepped through the door of light and entered the bamboo building in the small courtyard. On the second floor of the building, in the room that Devil Light had once occupied, a girl in red lay on the bed. Naturally, it was Taihun. Above her body floated pieces of purple sun-warm jade, emitting gentle waves of energy. At this moment, her expression was calm and her breathing was long and steady. Her entire body was enveloped in a layer of faint purple light, making her look as though she were merely asleep. Yet she still showed no sign of waking. At first, Han Li had used some low-grade warm jade. Later, he began using mid-grade warm jade. They did benefit Taihun's soul to some extent, but in the end, they could not restore her vanished origin power, so they still could not awaken her. Putting aside the low-grade warm jade, Han Li had given more than half of the mid-grade purple sun-warm jade he had obtained earlier to Shi Chuankong. As for the only 2 pieces of high-grade warm jade, he had kept them both. Even so, he understood that if the medicine did not match the illness, then even high-grade warm jade would still be unable to awaken Taihun. Fellow Taoist Han, may I speak with you? At that moment, Crab Taoist's voice suddenly came from outside the building. Hearing this, Han Li immediately went downstairs and invited Crab Taoist inside. The two sat down beside a bamboo 8 immortals table in the building. Once Crab Taoist sat across from him, Han Li noticed that his expression was somewhat strange. On that face, which was usually expressionless, there was actually a hint of hesitation. Fellow Taoist Crab, has something happened? Han Li asked. In recent days, a name has often appeared in my mind. I feel it may be related to the final order my master left behind back then, Crab Taoist said with tightly furrowed brows. What name? Han Li asked. Jilin Kongjing, Crab Taoist replied. Jilin Kongjing. What is that? Han Li searched through his mind but had no impression of it. I do not know either. This term has appeared frequently in my mind recently, but I do not know what it specifically refers to, Crab Taoist said, shaking his head. It sounds like some kind of secret realm. But how do you know it is related to your former master? Han Li raised an eyebrow, as if he had thought of something, and asked again. Ever since we entered the demon realm, fragments of my master's past memories have begun appearing in my mind. Seems my master originally came from the demon realm. As for Jilin Kongjing, it seems to have some connection to him. What that connection is, I do not yet know, Crab Taoist said after pondering for a moment. You mean your master was a demon? Han Li was first slightly startled, then a trace of realization appeared in his eyes. Back when he first encountered Crab Taoist, had it not been in the Devil Origin Sea, that place was located in the demon realm of the lower world. That is correct. However, for some unknown reason, he later went to the Immortal Realm and once served as a puppet refining artisan at 100 Creation Mountain, Crab Taoist said with a nod. I will think of a way to inquire about Jilin Kongjing later. Since this feeling only appeared after entering the demon realm, that place is most likely connected to the demon realm. If more of your memories awaken, tell me immediately. Since I promised back then to help him fulfill his final wish, I naturally will not shirk it, Han Li said after thinking for a moment. Crab Taoist said nothing more. He nodded and took his leave. Han Li remained seated alone inside the bamboo building, his thoughts somewhat unsettled. Ever since he had set foot in the ruins of the True Mantra sect, life had been extremely chaotic. Even sitting down quietly to cultivate had become a luxury. Earlier, through a lucky opportunity in the marrow cleansing pool, he had broken through the bottleneck of the 5th level of the spirit refinement technique. After that, there were no more obstacles in his cultivation of it, but he had never had time to properly comprehend it, so the 5th level of the technique had yet to reach completion. As for the 5-time attribute cultivation arts of the True Mantra sect, aside from the mantra wheel scripture, which he had studied most deeply, he had not conducted much detailed research into the other 4. Speaking of it, as early as when he was in the northern Chill Immortal region, he had faintly sensed that there should be some kind of connection between the mantra wheel scripture, the illusory dawn codex, and the water evolution 4 seasons art. Later, by coincidence, he obtained the Eastern withering and flourishing scripture and the severing time flowing fire collection, and a guess gradually began forming in his mind. He believed that there must be some connection among these 5 cultivation arts. Since I have to stay here for a while, I might as well try cultivating these arts. It can also help further stabilize my cultivation, Han Li murmured after thinking for a moment. With that thought, he slowly closed his eyes and began meditating to regulate his breathing. After a while, light flashed in his sea of consciousness, and the severing time flowing fire collection that immortal venerable heat fire had left him began to appear. He had not examined it carefully before, so only now did he truly begin cultivating this art. The severing time flowing fire collection was quite similar to the other cultivation arts. It also had 9 levels. With each level cultivated, one's comprehension of the power of time laws would deepen. It was closest to the illusory dawn codex. It also mentioned something similar to the illusory dawn sand realm, called the severing time fire realm. It seemed that after mastering it, one could cause time within a certain area to fall into stillness. This time stillness seemed to be an absolute stagnation of time. However, the range it could affect was limited and had to gradually expand as the cultivation art improved. After pondering for a moment, Han Li did not immediately begin cultivating it. Light rippled again in his sea of consciousness. Within a hazy green glow, tiny golden characters appeared one after another. It was another time attribute cultivation art called the Eastern withering and flourishing scripture. When he had first obtained this cultivation art, he had only examined it briefly and had not had time to study it carefully afterward. After examining it thoroughly, Han Li discovered that this cultivation art was quite different from the others. Although it also cultivated the power of time laws, it did not have much offensive power. After successfully cultivating it, one had the chance to condense an Eastern divine tree. Where this divine tree was planted, within a certain radius, the changes of the 4 seasons and the cycle of withering and flourishing of grass, trees and vegetation would all be controlled by the cultivator. When facing spirits or demons formed from plants and trees that had attained cultivation, it would also have an innate suppressive effect. However, Hanli was not too interested in the latter effect. After all, he already had a Jingyan firebird, which was enough to deal with spirits formed from flowers, plants, and trees. What he cared more about was the first effect. If he could control the changes of the 4 seasons within a certain area, did that not mean he could accelerate the flow of the seasons and thereby cause plants and trees to grow faster? If that were truly the case, then if an Eastern divine tree were planted in his spirit herb garden, would it not be able to ripen spirit herbs over a large area? Although its effect would certainly not be as strong as the green liquid from the small vial, its advantage would lie in its far greater range. After finishing his examination, Hanli suddenly remembered that when he had previously cultivated the illusory Dawn Codex, there was a certain key point he had never understood. In the past, he had only followed the cultivation method described in the art and tried to comprehend it again and again. Today, after carefully studying the Severing Time Flowing Fire collection, he discovered that one method within it for condensing Severing Time Flowing Fire seemed to have a wonderful use when combined with the illusory Dawn Sand. Thinking of this, he quickly closed his eyes and regulated his breathing, using this method to begin cultivating. Several hours later, Hanli opened his eyes, a hint of delighted surprise appearing on his face. This method really worked. Seeing this, a trace of doubt could not help but arise in his heart. These 5 cultivation arts all seemed to be time attribute arts, yet each had a different focus, and each name also contained an attribute of the 5 elements. Could it be that combining them together would produce the so-called Great 5 Elements illusory world art? Once this thought emerged, he immediately closed his eyes and rotated the 5 cultivation arts one by one through his mind. Starting with the mantra wheel scripture, which he was most familiar with, he began sorting through the cultivation pathways of the 5 arts bit by bit. Time slowly passed. Soon the sky darkened, and then the moon rose in the east and sank in the west, until night ended and morning arrived. After an entire night had passed, Hanli still remained seated in silent thought. Only after a long while did he slowly open his eyes. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he murmured to himself, "Not one of these 5 cultivation arts is simple or easy to understand. The pathways within them are intricate beyond measure. The more I look at them now, the more they resemble a tangled mess. Places where they can verify one another like before are rare after all. Forget it. If I cannot untangle them, I will put it aside for now. I might as well first cultivate the Severing Time Flowing Fire collection and the Eastern Withering and Flourishing scripture. Perhaps there may still be some unexpected gains." After thinking this through, Hanli hesitated no longer. He swallowed a pill, formed hand seals, and silently recited the incantation of the Severing Time Flowing Fire collection. He began circulating the immortal spiritual power in his body, and layers of faint red ripples started to spread across him. Time passed in a flash and more than 3 months went by. Inside the bamboo building in the flower branch space, Hanli had already withdrawn from his cultivation state. With both hands clasped behind his back, he paced back and forth inside the building. A moment later he pushed open the bamboo building's door with tightly furrowed brows and walked into the small courtyard, where lotus flowers floated over a misty pond. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth within the courtyard was extremely abundant. Merely standing there gave one an especially comfortable feeling. Hanli walked onto the small bridge, rested one hand on the railing, and lowered his gaze to the lotus leaves in the pond. He stared blankly at the winding, sparse veins on their surfaces. Over the past 3 months, he had begun cultivating both the Severing Time Flowing Fire collection and the Eastern Withering and Flourishing scripture. However, he discovered that not only was the process not as smooth as when he had cultivated the Water Evolution 4 Seasons art before, it was instead full of obstacles, making progress extremely difficult. It was not that his comprehension of the power of time laws was insufficient. Rather, he discovered that when he tried to study all 5 cultivation arts at the same time, they did not merely contain points that verified one another. They also contained many contradictions. In particular, during cultivation, The pathways through which immortal spiritual power flowed in his body might conform to the severing time-flowing fire collection and accord with the illusory dawn codex, but they would conflict with the water evolution four seasons art. If they conformed to the mantra wheel scripture and accorded with the water evolution four seasons art, then they would conflict with the Eastern withering and flourishing scripture. In short, if he wanted to cultivate all five arts at the same time, then without finding the correct pathway among them, he would only become more and more confused the more he practiced, eventually losing all sense of direction. Hanli felt depressed. He felt as though he had walked into a dead end, and began considering whether he should withdraw from it voluntarily. At worst, he could simply treat the five cultivation arts as independent arts and cultivate them separately. At the very least, he could first cultivate the mantra wheel scripture to completion. At this thought, he suddenly remembered that the green jade slip containing the complete 9-level mantra wheel scripture also recorded an extremely strange text called the Sumeru Induction Chapter. That is right. That is right. How could I have forgotten it? Hanli slapped his own forehead 3 times and cried out. As soon as he said this, he turned his wrist. Green light flashed in his palm, and a green jade slip appeared. On the bamboo slip was a line of small characters written in golden seal script. One hears the Tao between dawn and dusk. Destiny and law lie between heaven and earth. Hanli held the jade slip, gently rubbing the words engraved upon it. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth as he quickly walked back into the bamboo building and closed the door. This seclusion lasted for several more months. During this time, Shi Chuankong came looking for Hanli once. After learning that he was in seclusion, Shi Chuankong voluntarily left. Before leaving, however, he instructed Crab Taoist that once Hanli emerged from seclusion, he should immediately come and meet him. Hanli remained in seclusion inside the small bamboo building the entire time and did not appear. On this day, the closed door of the bamboo building finally opened with a creak. Hanli walked out refreshed and clear-minded. He shook his shoulders, stretched his body, and a smile appeared on his face. Over the past several months, he had spent most of his time comprehending the Sumeru Induction Chapter. Although it was only a few thousand words long, it had truly given him a great headache for a while. Fortunately, hard work did not betray the determined. 2 months earlier, he had finally understood part of its mysteries. The reason the Sumeru Induction Chapter was difficult to understand was because Hanli's line of thought had been wrong from the beginning. He had always believed that this chapter should be a cultivation art or divine ability related to the laws of time. In reality, however, this chapter was more like a general outline. It was not meant to be cultivated directly. Instead, it served as a guiding framework, explaining the cultivation order of the 5 arts, including the mantra wheel scripture. Of course, what it pointed out was not merely a simple order of which came first and which came later. Rather, it subtly presented the mutually generating and complementary relationships among these 5 cultivation arts, using them as guidance for truly cultivating the great 5 elements illusory world art. The 5 cultivation arts approach the laws of time from the perspective of the 5 elements of heaven and earth: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. After all things possess time. As one of the 3 supreme laws of the Immortal Realm, the laws of time were vast and boundless. The generation and destruction of all things could not escape the restraints of time. Yet the laws of time were also illusory and intangible, so much so that ordinary people could not touch even a fraction of them before death. However, if one could move from a single point to the larger whole, using the Tao of the 5 elements generation and destruction to glimpse the true essence of the great Tao of time, success might not be impossible.